We are now being joined by ONYEKWUE NNADOZIE, is the National Coordinator, Trauma Awareness and Resilience Initiative and mental health expert. And to my immediate left, IJEOMA AMUGO. She's the Acting Director, Violence Against Persons Department of the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. Maybe I should start with you, Madam. Women are more of the victim here, even though it's a cross-gender situation. Like we saw in that report by Punarima Benjamin, you find a man, violating a woman and vice versa. But how much intervention has your agency, NAPTIP, your department, done in this regard?
NAPTIP have done a lot in the fight against domestic violence. Not
in the case of Osinachi Nwachukwu. No. Was there any ever report?
It was not reported to NAPTIP. NAPTIP had no knowledge of that.
But case. You're still going to investigate that?
Yeah.
Even in death?
Our officer was there the day the case broke. He went to the house for investigations, but because it's now something different, because it's like a murder case now.
Yeah. So you don't investigate murder case. Okay. Yes. Just tell us more how you intervene in domestic violence like this then.
Our agency, first of all, we try to prevent domestic violence by enlightenment. We go to the grassroots, we go to the marketplaces, the schools, universities, secondary school, primary schools, to enlighten them about the dangers of violence, especially domestic violence, because you find out that it permeates all strata of the society. You will be surprised that very educated people also suffer from domestic violence. So those from schools report, because we have people we call like vanguards, people who are our eyes, because we can't be everywhere. They report to us of what happens in their school. Sometimes they report maybe classmates that have wounds and things like that. So we take it up from there. That is one aspect. There's another aspect, the prosecutorial aspect. When such cases are reported to NAPTIP, we investigate. And after investigation, if there's a case, we charge it to court. That is another aspect of our
your intervention.
Yes, for domestic violence. We also take care of the victims. We have shelters. Even though now we also ask our stakeholders to provide more shelters because the cases are increasing. So we provide shelters for these victims.
If you say the cases are increasing, you want to put a statistical, figure on a monthly or quarterly basis or yearly basis, for example. How many of these cases does NAPTIP treat?
For example, last year, the first quarter of last year, we had about 125 reported cases.
Just in the FCT?
Yes, in the FCT alone. But this year, just this first quarter, we're almost having like 200 cases being reported. So that's how we know that maybe because of the awareness, now people are more eager to report.
Okay, I'm going to come to the issue of awareness. We're going to talk about the issue of religion, and cultural indices, that have to play in this. But let me quickly bring in Francis Onyekwe, right? Yes. Who is a clinical social worker. Do you come in only when the damage has been done, because some of the videos that we have seen, we can't really play them back because they are quite traumatic, I feel affected, from both ways when I see this kind of awful, horrible situation.
Yeah, thank you very much. You are suffering from secondary traumatization. That's how every other person suffers from. That's why we say everybody is prone to be traumatized. We as social workers, we come in at every level when the case is reported, even at the point when the matter is going on. You understand? We intervene in a counseling way, try to mediate to settle the issue. But you see, one thing I want people to understand about domestic violence is this. There's a cycle. It's a cycle. There's a cycle of violence. And what is this cycle? One, there is a tension number one is tension stage. When the tension is rising, is building up, this is the time the abuser call different names to the victim. This is the time the abuser uses body language to dehumanize the victim. And from, this is the time there's a breakdown in communication at this tension stage.
And there's what people are calling the narcissist connection now, or behavioral disposition that is, narcissist.
Yes, exactly. Now, from this tension stage, it goes to the abusive stage itself. And that abusive stage, that is where the physical abuse comes in. And not only the physical abuse, emotional, sexual abuse, because any man that beats the wife, that derives pleasure in beating the partner or the wife, there's a tendency for sexual abuse, and there's emotional abuse also. Most cases, they are financial abuse. You understand? From there, there's another stage called making up stage or honeymoon stage. This is the period where the abuser will beg and tell the victim, I am sorry. I didn't know what getting over me. I didn't know the time I did it. I am sorry. I will not do it again. In fact, the abuser can buy a lot of things to please the victim. He can even pay a flight ticket for the victim to go to anywhere. Now, from the honeymoon stage, you get to the calm stage. That period of the calm stage, the promises in the honeymoon stage will be fulfilled. And at the calm stage,
is this a changing process after counseling?
Yeah.
Your kind of intervention experts like you?
These are things, research that have been done over years on domestic violence. These were things that were discovered. And from that calm stage, it enters into tension building again. That's the cycle. You understand? Now, any human being, you see yourself in this kind of position, you know that there is something, you need to do something.
How about the primary, let me ask you again, how about the primary traumatization of the children for couples who have kids? Because you've talked about my own reaction to it and say that's secondary traumatization. Exactly. The kids there, and that probably is what's going to make it a circle. Yeah. Saying what they are saying, distraught and the rest, yeah. Growing up with such psychological mentality, yeah. And they may just think that it's the right thing to do. Subjugation. Yeah. Is it?
Yeah. What happened here is this. The traumatization, the children or the people around, the bystanders, because in every domestic violence, there are bystanders. Somebody is videoing it. You understand? Now, the bystanders also suffer secondary traumatization. They are not the primary victim. The primary victim is the target. That's the person that suffers the second primary trauma. You understand? Now, but the bystanders or the people around suffer the secondary. And that secondary traumatization at a point in time, if it is not healed, will also graduate. It will also affect them because, for example, this case of Osinachi and the children, the story is that the children are always there when the father is beating their mother. Now, what the children do is there's nothing they can do. Their hands are tied. They internalize what is going on. And when they internalize it, they grow up acting out. And they will act out violently to other people or their colleagues, or become bullies in school or anywhere, or they become aggressive in nature. Or even when they get married, right inside them, they'll be saying, I will not do this to my wife when I get married. But, you know, what we do as human beings...
Conditioned stimulus is there because it's not been, expunged
it's unconscious.
Yes, from their system.
85% of what we do is unconscious. So something will trigger it off, and you see them doing it. And that is where the honeymoon stage comes. Oh, this is not the kind of person I am. Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. They act it out.
All right, Francis, let me come back to IJEOMA. The kind of intervention NATIP is doing here. We've heard of, certain religious sensibility, women or people in marriage that is not working, being battered and rest, and say, oh, my pastor said, oh, my Papa Gio, Mama Gio said, don't leave, continue to endure and the rest. Oh, what would the stigma of what society would say, the stigma of what, the parents or the people in the village will say. How do you battle this kind of situation? How do you imbibe or tell the people, you know, to save their lives first?
In NAPTIP, in VAP department, you have counselors that counsel these victims when they come. First of all, we have a shelter. We have a shelter in Abuja. So when they come in, they are counseled, and if they have medical issues, they're taken to hospitals and have their medical issues attended to.
Those are victims that you know, that you go to rescue.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, I'm trying to say what the kind of interventions we
that you give, yeah.
Yes. For those that are not with us, we only reach them through sensitization. Because it is
traditional rulers and religious bodies. That's what I'm...
We go to traditional rulers, we go to churches, we go to the mosque. We try to tell them that domestic violence is wrong and victims should not accept it. Because, you know, our culture, sorry to say it, our culture is patriarchal. They see the man as a superior being. As
the alpha and omega.
Yes. So it is like Mr. Francis has said. It is something that is subconscious. It is not something they do willingly. They know that they are placing themselves in a weaker position, but you see them accepting.
It's not the making of any devil.
Yes, you see them.
The devil is within the person, or the person is probably the devil.
Yes, you see them accepting to stay in that violent place, in that violent marriage. Some of the time they come and the cases are very clear. We are ready to go to court because that is a deterrent measure. You see, you will be surprised in the court. That same victim will come to the court with a husband that has battered her. I am telling you the truth. So it is something that is very painful because, you know, that fear of what people will say, the stigmatization, my marriage didn't work and things like that. That is what makes these women to continue staying in such marriages at the detriment of their life and safety.
And let me come to you again. I mean, as a clinical social worker, the kind of scenario IJEOMA has painted, you know, is it enough to benumb anybody? Is it a case of, you know, economic survival or just security of being married or the name of being married? Because there's no security when the partner is being battered.
That's what we call power control will when you come to domestic violence. And what is power control will? When the abuser has the economic power, economic control, when the abuser have the financial control.
Sometimes the women are even the ones providing.
The woman can be the one providing.
Very supportive.
The woman can be the one providing, but she is not in control. Now, because the woman have lorded over her and make her to, you know, subdue her so that he will be in control. So whatever he says is final, and the woman doesn't have any say. You understand? So you see, a lot of women are going through this. A lot of women are going through this. And what we saying here is this: break the cycle. Break the cycle of violence. Speak out. Break that fear in you. The fear of leaving your marriage, the fear of what people will say, the fear of what you're going to start, how you're going to start afresh, the fear of
the unknown.
The unknown. You have to break that fear. That is what is holding a lot of women bound. That is what is holding a lot of women to suffer silently. That fear, they need to conquer it.
Yes, indeed, they need to conquer it. And the final word from you, if I may ask, I mean, in the cases you've had that, you know, is beginning to rise after the first quarter of this year to about 300 cases, and they're in your shelter. Have you had any convictions of some of the victims who perpetrate this violence?
Yes, we have had about 12 convictions on domestic violence, but most of them are on rape. Because when it comes to spousal battery, they are very reluctant to go ahead with prosecution. You see them, they rather use NAPTIP as a whipping boy to whip their husbands into shape than going to court. So that's the problem we have. If they are ready to go to court, And some women will see, maybe other victims, we see 1 or 2 men being convicted for spousal battery.
In jail.
And in jail. It will teach a lesson to other ones that it is not acceptable.
It's not right. Yes,
yes.
It's against the law.
Yes. So we're trying to make sure we build up their psychological strength and their emotional strength to be able to face the future and face their husband and say, what you're doing is wrong. And we're doing that through sensitization. All
right. Thanks so very much. IJEOMA Amugo, Acting Director, Violence Against Persons Department of NAPTIP. And Francis ONYEKWUE is a clinical social worker. Thanks so very much for coming to shed more light on the issue of domestic violence in Nigeria.
Thank you very much.